Wednesday, the 9th of June 2026. A pleasant good morning to you. And a warm welcome to your breakfast show, Good Morning Sierra Leone, the program that always starts your day with analysis and divergence of views on news and current happenings in the country. We are your presenters. I am Esther Sako.
And I am Emmanuel Samuel. Well, we start today with a quote. Our quote of the day is from English inventor Tim Berners-Lee, and it says, "We need diversity of thoughts in the world to face the new challenges." I go over it again. He said, "We need diversity of thoughts in the world to face the new challenges."
Well, that is deep. We leave that as a food for thought for our esteemed viewers. Well, coming up in this edition of the program, Secretary General of the General Legal Council questions the indefinite postponement of the AGM 2026, the elections, as it violates best practice.
Spokesperson for the First Lady speaks on her stance on FGM and clears the air on recent controversy surrounding her.
And Forum Against Harmful Practices in Sierra Leone says it is deeply concerned with the recent increase in violence against women and girls, especially female genital mutilation in Sierra Leone. On that note, that's how we invite you to participate in the program by sending your text message to the number displayed on your screen, or send your comments on our Facebook page, slbc.sl. The program is Good Morning Sierra Leone, live on the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation. Stay with us.
While the program you're watching is Good Morning Sierra Leone live on the SLBC, we start the program proper. Go to the first headline story. The Secretary General of the General Legal Council, Victor Idrissa Lansana, has written a letter to the President of the Sierra Leone Bar Association questioning the indefinite postponement of the AGM 2026 and elections, which was scheduled for the 5th and 6th June 2026, citing logistical challenges beyond the control of the company's directors. Noticeably, according to Mr. Lansana, the notice failed to state a new date for the AGM, which violates best practices. Whilst asking the management to provide a new date for the AGM and elections without further delay, he also recommends that an extraordinary general meeting, EGM, be immediately convened and that the postponement shall not stretch beyond the legal time limit of 90 days, among other recommendations. Well, in the studio to talk more about this, we have been joined by Victor I. Lansana, the Secretary General for the General Legal Council. Good morning, Mr. Lansana, and welcome to the program. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. First of all, I want to say thanks to SLBC management. It's been a while. I used to be here on a frequent basis, but it's been a while, and I've seen huge improvements in the studio. I'm just done from morning coffee, and here again, I see something really spectacular. Congratulations.
Thank you very much for that one. Mr. Lansana, you raised concerns regarding the postponement of the bar elections, something that have caught the eye of the public, and the online media is awash with different information as to this AGM of the Bar Association. So I want you to put it into real context, your press release and the concerns you've raised with regards to the postponement of the Bar AGM.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me again. The bar association, as you all know, it's a critical voice in Sierra Leone. It's the premier company or institution on the issues of rule of law and constitutionalism. When you talk about private companies generally. So we as a company, we have faced a lot of challenges over time, and those challenges have really put our association in a very different light in the eyes of the public. And I think for me as a legal practitioner who has been around for some time now, we have to face those challenges head on and be able to rewrite history and then restore the dignity of the bar. You are aware that in 2024 we had our AGM in Kenema, and since then we haven't had any other annual general meeting because we are taking a position that we have filed a resolution that there should be an extension of the tenure for every executive. So it used to be every year we go to elections, we go and have an AGM and then followed by the elections. But now after that resolution, we are now having it after every 2 years. So the last time we had one was in 2024. So it was right for us to have our elections now in May. In June, I should say, the executive put out a press statement announcing that the elections, the AGM, annual general meeting, and the elections will hold on the 5th and the 6th of June. But unfortunately, later on, 4 days to the 5th and the 6th, they had to come out again and say that because of logistical challenges, the elections or the AGM generally was to be postponed, and they postponed it. And so my contention there is that you cannot postpone without stating a new date for the elections. So that was why I wrote to them a letter dated 5th June, calling them to first ensure that we have a very clear date for the elections. They must be able to state clearly. I know they have the powers, by the MNA that we have to determine date, time of AGMs and annual general meetings. But then also, if you are doing postponements, it is best that you clearly state when will be the next general meeting. You have to state the date and the place where we'll be having that. But the notice actually fell short of making a clear pronouncement in terms of the new date. So to me, it offends the best practice of corporate governance, and that is why I've called upon them to, first of all, convene an extraordinary general meeting, an EGM, where we go and discuss issues relating to the annual general meeting generally, and making sure that we have a team or a body that we appoint, which body will be able to make sure that they set up rules and regulations, and then let's go for the elections.
So Mr. Lansana, you recommending for an EGM, wherein you are talking about this EGM is for issues to be discussed that surrounds the AGM. And someone seated out there, because we belong to different professional bodies, for example, SLAJ. All of that are issues that we have usually when we go to AGM. It's within the AGM that we speak about these issues. So you recommending for an EGM before the AGM, don't you think that it will undermine even the AGM itself?
No, it doesn't. So the Sierra Leone Association is a company limited by guarantee. We have memorandum and articles of association, which is like a Bible, the Bible or the Quran, or the constitution of the organization. It tells you the purpose for which the association was created, the reasons why it was created, and it shows also, it talks about the executive, the powers of the executive. It talks about membership, who can be a member, how you can be a member, and it tells you who conduct elections. And then it also highlights whether who can actually vote in an election, for instance, paid up members. So the articles of association is very clear that you can appoint a senior to members can appoint a senior to superintend over elections or to conduct elections. It doesn't see whether that appointment should be done on the day of the elections in the hall. No, it just says that members can appoint a senior to conduct the elections. So for me, because of the experience I've had over time, it has been chaotic, particularly so in 2024, when you had to appoint that senior, during the time of the elections. So I think we can actually have this EGM, extraordinary general meeting, where we can appoint a senior and then two other members of the association who will form a team that I refer to as an electoral body, so that at the end of it all, they will be able to put together guidelines for the elections. They will be able to verify, working closely with the executive, verify members who have registered to participate and to vote in the EGM and elections, and then they'll be able to also publish, the list of members who are eligible. So once you do so, you are creating decorum. And by the way, the bar association is a profession with decorum. It's a profession with nobility.
Okay.
So I don't want us to go into the elections and then when we are in the hall, that is when people begin to say, oh, I have not seen my name is not on the list, all of that. We create chaos. So we have to, call this meeting and then go and agree on these issues before ever we go into the elections. But then, of course, a clear date has to be communicated by the executive.
So, Mr. Lantana, the present executive said they are faced with logistical challenges, as that is the reason why they pushed the dates for the elections. Don't you think that is enough reason for them to postpone the elections?
Well, that may be a reason, but then first of all, there was an initial date that was slated for the AGM, the 5th and the 6th of June. So that means that the executive had worked out the logistical issues, considerations before they put out that notice communicating a date for the AGM and the elections. So if you think now that there has been some intervening issues that you did not foresee when you were doing that plan, when you are communicating that notice by then before you come out to give a date and to announce a postponement, you will have calculated, everything within your means to say, because of A, B, and C, we are postponing to this particular date. But you cannot put out a notice, blindly to say we are postponing without communicating the dates to the membership. Because this is a profession where members go on vacation, and very soon a lot of members will be going on vacation, the court will be going on recess. So once the court goes on recess, then it tells you that you not have a lot of lawyers around. A lot of lawyers will have to go, and then that will not actually mean well if you conduct elections in the absence of many other colleagues. So that is why I'm calling on a definite time for the elections, for the AGM to go on and elections to go.
So, Mr. Lansana, I'm still looking at our own prototype / usually when you look at what you say, what you are saying in your article of association, what your own article of association says that you appoint a senior member and two other members who will be mandated to put out the rules for the elections. And when you look at what is being done in Sludge, individuals no longer conduct elections. Rather, separate institutions are being put in place. For example, we have the SLAGEC, we also Sludge and Electoral Commission. It is within AGM that we appoint commissioners who are there. They are there for 3 years. Each commissioner is mandated to go for 3 years. Every AGM, we vote for those commissioners again. If you are eligible, we vote for you. So, looking at all of those things, do you think that the current model that BA is using is more beneficial to the BA itself?
I think you and I may be saying the same thing, maybe using different words. I'm not sure the commissioners that you appoint during AGMs, you appoint them on that day and to conduct elections on that very day. You appoint them in advance. They have a tenure of 3 years. That is what you're saying also.
Yes.
So you appoint them today so that they are now in place. When the next 3 years expires, then you go and conduct elections. Is that not the point? So it's the same thing I'm saying. I'm saying the M&A tells you that you can appoint, the membership can appoint a senior to conduct elections. That's just what the M&A says. First, it doesn't even say that that appointment has to be during the elections, during the day of the meeting. It doesn't say that. But practice over time, they have been appointing, that is what we have been doing, appointing that senior member during the election day, or on the election day. That is when they have been appointed. So I'm not saying, because experience has taught us that it breeds violence or chaos, I'm saying do that appointment before going into the elections, before the AGM itself. So we can have an extraordinary meeting where we can go, the membership can go, and then appoint a senior member together with 2 other members. The M&A doesn't say appoint other members to work with the senior, but the practice has been that senior alone, because of the bar has now really extended. We have a number of people who are not becoming lawyers. Those days when that M&A was drafted, was done in the year 2000, there were very few people who are lawyers. So that is why, because over time we are having a lot of people coming to the bar, so we started appointing not just one individual, but also 2 more to join that one senior to be able to conduct elections. So I'm saying, let us do that before going into the elections. Have an electoral body, who would work with the current executive. For instance, they put together guidelines as to how the elections will be conducted. Make sure that the list, is verified together with the executive. Publish the list 2 weeks before the elections. So once you do so, you have now catered for decorum, for a very peaceful, transparent, and fair elections. It is not on the day that you start to do all of these things. Because at the end of the day, if you go into the hall on the day of the elections, and then people come to say, oh, I've not seen my name on the list, I was not given a seat, but I have my bank slip, then it becomes chaotic. Because the electoral commissioner or the executive will begin to say, oh, if they think that you are not in favor or in support of them, they will begin to say, no, well, maybe you did not pay on time. But you are a member. Okay, so that is why you have to, I'm recommending that everything has to be done, everything has to be put in place, even before we enter into the hall, into the day of the elections. That is what I'm recommending. But I'm sure the executive will have to reply to my letter and we'll take it from there.
So as per your constitution, is there a legal implication for the post when there is no exact date put out by the president's executive? Are there legal implications to that?
So first of all, we have to agree that the executive is still properly seated. They have an extension of 90 days, which is 3 months, for the life of the executive to expire. But then they cannot exceed that 90 days. A day added to that 90 days would be an illegitimate executive if they continue to be in office after 90 days. There is no clear law that states in that M&A in our constitution that states that if you postpone without giving a specific date for a new date, it offends the law or you should be liable. But then by best corporate governance, we know corporate governance, even the Companies Act of 2009 as amended in 2015, it's clear. We have to conduct ourselves like corporate people. And predictability, certainty are the hallmarks of corporate governance. So that is why we are saying, I'm saying that the executive should be very, very clear, because otherwise you create room for suspicions. People get suspicious that, oh, they are doing this because they don't want to conduct elections, they are afraid of conducting elections, and so on and so forth. So because you don't want to find yourself in such a suspicious circumstance, clearly communicate the next date for the elections. Okay, we agree that you are challenged logistically, but then you should be able to calculate, all of what you have had, given all of the circumstances. and say the best time we think that this election can be conducted or this AGM can be called is on so and so date. By then, we as members will be able now to arrange our calendars, to arrange our different engagements to be able to attend the program because we are all members of the bar.
Okay. Thank you very much. He is the Secretary General of the General Legal Council, Victor Ireland, and as he has been taking us through, as he has been calling on the present executive of the Bar Association to provide a new date for the AGM and elections without further delay. The Good Morning Sierra Leone program continues. First Lady Fatima Madabiyo has sparked intense international backlash and domestic debate over female genital mutilation, particularly due to a refusal to openly condemn the practice and a policy stance on adult consent. The core of the controversy centers on several key points, including the First Lady's stance on FGM. The First Lady has stated that she is a circumcised woman but does not publicly campaign for or encourage the practice. She has also stated she did not allow her own daughters to undergo the ritual because she wanted to spare them the pain, which drew criticism from activists who question why the practice remained acceptable for others. For several more reasons, there have been international backlash as campaigners and FGM survivors fiercely criticize her stance. Well, in the studio we have the spokesperson for the First Lady, Rusu Dadida Jallo. Good morning, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, so as you heard from my intro, there have been a lot of criticisms around the First Lady's statement. Would you clearly state the stance of the First Lady with regard to this whole controversy going around?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. First of all, I want to start by stating that the First Lady of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Dr. Fatima Madabiyo, like you rightly said, is not against the initiation into the Bondo society, but rather against the aspect of forceful initiation into the society. Over time, since she became First Lady, even prior to becoming First Lady, she has been using her space to advocate to our larger communities that the aspect of forceful initiation of girls below the ages of 18 is something we should not allow. It should not be allowed to be happening in our communities. Now, in all of this, like you said, quite recently, I visited in Kenema, where she went to stand in solidarity with the women of our country, the grassroots women of Sierra Leone. Her position is clear and sacrosanct, that she is a circumcised woman with no complication from being circumcised, so she cannot in any way go against any adult woman who willingly wants to be circumcised. And she also certainly will not support any circumcision of a child who is below the ages of 18. So her position is clear since day one to now, including what is happening quite recently, the controversies coming from the anti-FGM support campaigners, purporting that the First Lady is supporting the forceful initiation of girls into the Bondo society, misunderstanding the aspect of the First Lady being part of a guardian of women who are Sierra Leonean women in Kenya. Her position is sacrosanct. She is not against, she is a circumcised woman, and therefore she is not against circumcision. But what she is against, or what she is opposing, is the fact that the forceful initiation of girls into the Bondo society. That has been her stance, and that has been what she has been saying, and that has been what we have been doing over time.
So, one we look at it in another way, saying that in as much as the First Lady is not even against the circumcision, because she is a circumcised woman, as she put it, but she's against the forceful circumcision. One might be saying a statement is somehow tricky, saying that we are for it, but we are against the forceful. But as stating that she is for it, someone might be saying, oh, that's the reason why some people are forcing other women to go into it.
She is not against adult women being circumcised. However, she is against the forceful aspect of taking girls below the ages of 18 for FGM, for forceful circumcision. Her statement in Kenema did not contradict any of her stance. what we know, what she went to do in Kenema. This Kenema program did not start yesterday. She has been attending this event in Kenema over years, some years ago. It is not the first time. When women of this country, grassroots women of this country, converge in Kenema to celebrate their culture, to dance to the traditional beats of our country. And she was clear that before she was born, or when she was born, her grandmother was dancing to these tunes. Her mother was part of the Bondo society, and she too is a circumcised woman. But she did not share the experience of what many other women are saying. She was circumcised with no complications at all. So therefore, she cannot stand against something that she has not gotten the experience like what other people are saying. Over the years, since 2018, when she became First Lady, she has been calling the anti-FGM campaigners to come to the sitting board, to sit and dialogue on issues that has to do with FGM, but none has shown up thus far. So her position is clear. She is not saying anything in contradiction to what she has been doing. So what we have seen over time is the fact that people are using this situation, twisting this situation for political gains, that because the First Lady stood in that garden, she has automatically supported the FGM thing in this country, which is actually not the case.
So, I'll hold you there also. Sierra Leone remains one of the few West African countries where FGM is not explicitly banned by law, making it a highly sensitive and ongoing national debate. The Forum Against Harmful Practices is deeply concerned with the recent increase in violence against women, especially female genital mutilation. In the studio also we have Anita Koma, founder and country director, Girl Child Education, and a member of FAP.
Before we bring you in, we'll take a healthy, and when we come back after the break, we continue on that. Well, today on our LTIP, we'll take a look at the benefits of niacinamide. It's a type of vitamin B3 that can help improve your skin. The multitasking nutrient can brighten smooth fine lines and wrinkles and reduce redness. Let us watch and learn from a health tip of today.
If you're dealing with skin issues like redness, dark spots, and wrinkles, there are a lot of different products and ingredients that may help. But what about niacinamide? A type of vitamin B3, this multitasking skincare ingredient can be found in a variety of cleansers and moisturizers. Let's learn more about the benefits of niacinamide. 1. May support your skin barrier. Your skin barrier is a layer of water and oil that protects your skin. Niacinamide can keep your skin barrier strong by locking in moisture and blocking pollutants and irritants. Number 2, may calm redness. If you have areas of redness from skin conditions like acne, rosacea, and eczema, using niacinamide may help soothe any irritation. Number 3, may reduce the appearance of pores. While no ingredient has been proven to reduce the actual size of your pores, niacinamide may help minimize how large they appear by keeping your skin smooth and clear of blackheads. Number 4, may regulate oil production. If you have oily skin, using a product with niacinamide may help reduce the amount of oil your skin produces. It can also help prevent breakouts and clogged pores. 5, may treat dark spots. Hyperpigmentation can be caused by sun exposure, inflammation, or hormonal changes. Research shows that using a skincare product with 5% niacinamide can help lighten dark spots on your skin. Number 6, may reduce wrinkles and fine lines. The antioxidants found in niacinamide may protect your skin and aid in its recovery from sun damage, stress, and signs of aging. If you're interested in adding niacinamide to your skincare routine, consider using it once or twice daily after you wash your face. If you have sensitive skin, it's best that you start with a low concentration to avoid irritation and redness. Niacinamide plays well with other skincare ingredients like antioxidants, vitamin C, ceramides, glycolic acid, hyaluronic acid, and retinol. To maximize the benefits of niacinamide, experts recommend applying it to your skin after moisturizing. Get clearer, brighter skin with the help of niacinamide, a skincare ingredient that can improve the health of your skin in more ways than you might have thought.
Hope we learned a lot from our health tip of today, which has to do with niacinamide, and which is a type of vitamin D3 that will help improve your skin. Well, we still have Wusu Dadida Jallow, who is the spokesperson for the First Lady. Now, Mr. Jallow, when you go through social media and most of the comments and backlash given by members of the public towards the First Lady, is the fact that the First Lady has been is the one that introduced the Answer for Girls campaign, and she was seen dancing with Soweys, and these Soweys are the same people that involved in the cutting and all with Ashly's FGM practices. So don't you think that contradicts our vision of advocating for girls and now supporting these women that are involved in the forceful initiation of these laws?
I don't think so, and people should not see it as that. Now, what we need to understand is the fact that the First Lady of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Dr. Fatima Madabiu, has a moral and contractual obligation to attend any event organized by a group of Sierra Leoneans or a group of citizens of Sierra Leone to promote social cohesion. And that is the fact. I'm going to, of course, she launched the Hands of Our Girls in 2018, and the Hands of Our Girls have done indelibly well, and the track records are there. I mean, being also the lead campaigner for Hands of Our Girls, and also being in Kenema at some point in time, dancing with the Soweys of this country, the grassroots women of this country, does not contradict your stance as the caring mother of Salome. Like I said, just like the Hands of Our Girls, the First Lady has a contractual obligation to attend any program organized by a group of people or by the citizens of this country that is meant to promote social cohesion.
But these Soweys are the ones that actually do this, the FGM practices, and the First Lady that is campaigning for girls is seen in the presence of them. Don't you think that is a way of you supporting the idea?
I want you to know that being in that particular program is not an endorsement that you're in favor of the forceful FGM that we are talking about. What we've had from anti-campaigners, but the messages that we're seeing on social media, or a lot of people are misunderstanding, is that we don't even understand what they're campaigning for. Should the First Lady not be in the midst of women who are celebrating their culture? A culture that has been in existence even before she became First Lady. And her position was clear. We never had her saying anything in support of forceful FGM. And in that occasion, in that gathering, we never saw any girl that was below the ages of 18. We never saw any girl that was below 18 years. All the people who were there, all the women who were there, these are women of society. These are women from all walks of life, gathered in Kenema, and the First Lady was there to stand in solidarity with them. That is part of our obligation as First Lady. She was not supporting that, say, let them continue to forcefully bring girls to the Bondo society. She said it clearly that she is a Bondo woman, she's a circumcised woman. Her mother was a circumcised woman. Her grandmother was a circumcised woman. And she too is a circumcised woman. And none of these people have ever had any complications from being circumcised. So therefore, she will not stand against the circumcision of any adult woman who is willingly want to be circumcised. But what she's opposing, like many other people are, is the aspect of forceful FGM on girls who are below the age of 18.
So this forceful, how deliberate or how deliberate is the First Lady in the campaign against the forceful circumcision? Because this is where all the controversy surrounds. How deliberate is our campaign against the forceful circumcision?
The practice itself, girls are taken there.
So part of her deliberate attempt to ensure that she joined the larger populace to give their voice on the same issue was when she became First Lady in 2018. One of the first things she did was to invite most of our anti-FGM campaigners that we have today in our country to sit on the table and discuss strategies and discuss data and things that will inform that particular thing. Now, what we are seeing is the fact that most of these anti-FGM campaigners want the First Lady to use her voice and say, "Oh, let us put an end to Bondo." But how can you say, "Let us put an end to Bondo," when the experience you have is not the same experience these campaigners are talking about? So she has called them on the table on several occasions, 8 years to now. Nobody showed up. Nobody. So that is part of our deliberate effort. And in any occasion, in any gathering, she's talking to people or she's addressing a particular situation, whether in private, whether in public, whether in school, whether with community stakeholders, whether with paramount chief, either in any platform, like she did in Kenya. She will always condemn the practice of forceful initiation. I give you an example. There was a time she was in Kenema, even during this program that they held in Kenema. Before the program, she had a meeting with SOEs, and part of her point was to tell them significantly clear that we should stop. They should stop. If they are into it, they should stop the aspect of bringing girls who are below the ages of 18 because they cannot give consent. And you should have a woman circumcised when she can make informed decision.
Okay, so thank you very much. Continue to stay with us. Is Usu Dadida Jallow, the spokesperson for the First Lady. Well, as I earlier mentioned, we have members of the Forum Against Harmful Practices who have over the years stands for zero tolerance on FGM, and they believe no woman or girl should be subjected to inhumane activities, including cutting, wounding, or killing. Every woman and girl deserves a life of dignity, respect, freedom, and autonomy, especially over her body. Earlier, I said we have Anita Koma, founder and country director of Girl Child Education and a member of FAP, and also the chairperson of Forum Against Harmful Practices in Sierra Leone, Ugiatu Nene Toure. Good morning. Well, I'll start with Madam Koma. Madam Koma, as the country director of Girl Child Education and a member of FAP, you have been against the wounding, cutting, or killing, which people are saying, some people are saying that you guys are against the Bondo society itself. Is it the case?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Sometimes you just imagine how people think about things that other people are experiencing. For us, as a Forum Against Harmful Practices, we look at the zero tolerance, and all of us in there, we went through the practice. Who feels it, knows it. That is why we raise our voices. And for us, we believe no girl, no woman should suffer what we went through. I sit in here saying, FGM stops with me. Not even my daughter, I don't have a daughter, is a son. Not even my granddaughter, not even my sister, not even my sisters. The entire family. I stood up, I said, FGM stops with me because of my experiences. So for us sitting here, talking about it over the years, for over 20, some 30 years, me, at age 14, I went through it. From there, I detest the practice. My grandmother was a big culture, but I detest it. I never danced through the drums. I didn't want to hear about it because of my bad experiences. So if we are sitting here talking about forceful, we're talking about under 18 is a joke in Sierra Leone. Because currently, the under 18s are the ones suffering. We've done a great deal of job. When the adults, the older girls, they are not going through it. They say no to it because they've got the information. They know, they've watched movies, they watch our documentaries. That don't go for it. So now the younger ones, if we are sincere in this country, let's go up the province. I work in the province. I used to stay in Freight. I moved into the interiors. I meet those people. I work with students. I work with parents. I work with girls. Over thousands of them. On to December, we had the bloodless right of 25 girls. Over 200 community people come. They say, wow, without blood, it's doable if we want to keep the practice. First of all, First Lady is a Suna. I'm a Madinka. It's a Suna. It's not the Bondo culture that she went through. I can understand where she's coming from. But for us went through the Bondo culture, like they beat the drums, we dance. Madingas, we are doing Suna. Inside our father's houses, we are the cultures. So for me, if I doesn't involve in Bondo, that would be better. But us, knowing it, I sat there, I saw my cousins, myself, we will speak out to say no to FGM and FGM. It's not us, the government of Sierra Leone, from the past government, they signed all the instruments. The United Nations, the right of the child, the right of women, you come to Maputo Protocol, is well spelled out, the CIC, everything is there, they signed the documents. That's why we took them to the ECOWAS court. Is that right to do it?
Okay, let me bring you in, Madam Rugiatu Nenetui, the chairperson of Forum Against Harmful Practices in Sierra Leone. So, as a chairperson, how serious is FGM in Sierra Leone presently?
Thank you very much. The issue of FGM is very serious and it's becoming more controversial than it used to be. And for the simple fact that we have now a highly respectable woman coming forward to support it outsidely, it's becoming very, very serious, and we find it very difficult to understand why. Because we see that most people, most politicians, have safely safeguarded their own daughters, but yet they have push the children of poor families to go through this practice. If you take a statistics, looking at every initiation happening in this country, in the communities we work, because I don't stay in Freetown. I travel all the way from Putloko this morning just to come for this interview, and every day I come back and forth. So when people think we sit in Freetown and we just talk, no, we live in communities, that is where we work. And in all those communities, I have not witnessed any initiation where I see the daughter of a politician. All what I see are children for poor families, people who are ignorant of what the real consequences of FGM is. And so therefore we take that as an exception. Our work is to make sure those poor families understand what it means, what they are doing to their children. So it is actually very every Sierra Leonean need to show a concern about what is happening in the area of FGM in the country at the moment. So,
Madam Ture, is as the chairperson, is the forceful practice occurring?
Of course, just recently we listened to the audio of a 30-year-old woman complaining about what she faced. And we were able to send a team to see her. And she is not the only person. We have so many cases of forceful initiation. You know, when you live in a community and they know you are not caught, those women look for ways to have an affair or a quarrel with you. And at that moment, they will say the only way to have a discussion with you is to go to the Bondo bush because they want to catch you. And they can turn a room to a Bondo bush. So for me, that is a trend, and this is not the first case.
So have your advocacy been yielding any fruits over the years? Because you made mention of a recent.
We have made lot of progress as a nation, and we have been able to show the country that we can uphold our culture, the Bondo culture, because we also understand as women. All of us women working for FAP are survivors. We have gone through this practice. So our focus is to make sure we bring respect to Bondo as a tradition. We make sure politics is removed from our culture and politicians should take their hands off from the Bondo culture. And so therefore we introduce the bloodless rights. We have shown to the country how you can uphold Bondo, how you can bring value to Bondo. It is out there. Just yesterday, I saw somebody who is supporting FGM parading with a picture of Bondo girls, explaining about the beauty of Bondo. And that picture was a picture taken from our work. And so you parade with it preaching about. That is what we want to uphold. So he doesn't even know the difference between those they cut and those they don't cut. We have shown the country that Bondo can be upheld without violence.
So, Madam Koma, I bring you in again. This particular thing that you're talking, saying that Bondo can be done without the cutting. From the argument from the Sois, being in their presence and covered so many stories, is that a Bondo without cutting is not the Bondo itself. That is not the Biala culture. So, what are you really saying, that you can do Bondo without cutting?
I guess that argument has been laid to rest. We have done the bloodless more than Potloko, Koya twice, Wambali this December, Bo, Moyamba, Tongolili. So how can you say Bondo without cutting is not Bondo? When we have a movement of girls we call Born Perfect girls, over hundreds of them now, they have a movement. So we demonstrated that there are so ways they lay down their tools. They said no. We engage them in village savings projects. We engage them in skills. We engage them in other businesses, agriculture. As I'm talking now, go down to Bombali, go down to Poloko. You see what the women are doing. To Cambia, they disengage themselves from the practice. They say they don't want police case. All the time they are like having their own acts when they are cutting girls, that they can die there, anything can happen. I don't want police case. So we have these women testifying. Go do research in our work, go to AIM, go to Galchenet, or go to all the organizations, states, Tamak. There's a we are more than 29 organizations into this movement. Go and check. Look at the testimony of the Soweis in Bombali for the first time. They testify, now they are chasing us. We want to do the bloodless. We're going to put our money. We want our kids to experience the ceremony. There's nothing like blood. The guys you are like, they hold their heart. Oh, you're lying. Probably they're going to cut me. We say, no, when we finish, they thanked us. They said, thank you so much for giving us this experience. 9 meresi, 9 days sickly. The fun, the joke, the speakers, we give them, bringing women like our chair to share. You can educate yourself, leadership, how you can become a leader. We believe in that room. We have a safe space to talk like women, like girls. They are now friends. We form sisterhood, we form movement.
Okay, so let me bring you in again, Madam Tui. So the ECOWAS court on the 8th of July 2025 criminalized the act of the FGM practice. So has there been progress since that ruling was done in 2025?
Not actually. What we have done as a forum, and together with Purposeful, because we went to the court, we have presented this ruling to the minister, the Attorney General, who is responsible for justice in this country, and the court has also presented the ruling to him on behalf of the government, because he is responsible for that. And it was actually, he promised us faithfully that the government is going to look at the ruling, but to this day we have not had anything from the ministry again, and nobody from the government side. But to me, what is more appealing is our president is the current chairman for the president of the ECOWAS community. And we have like 5 representatives from the House of Parliament in the ECOWAS Parliament representing our country every time. So when the ECOWAS court gives a ruling and the country is like resisting in implementing, it's like undermining your very positions that you are holding. So we are still looking forward to meeting the minister to remind him, because it's almost a year now after the ruling was made. If we are waiting to remind him. But the good thing was the ECOWAS court was here sometime this year, and they met with different stakeholders, and we were also present in the meeting they called in one of the hotels. And we had a discussion, open discussion, where you have other civil society, asking them if the government fails to implement their ruling, what is their next step? Because I believe every country is binding to that. It's the countries who came together and established the court. There is no way they can undermine, or they should be allowed to undermine the court.
So, Madam Tue, something just came to mind, and when you look at it, is with regards to this forceful circumcision, forcing a child below the age of consent, it is a crime to do anything. So, as far in any time taking a matter of such to the court in Sierra Leone, and what has been the outcome? What have been the outcome?
Let me just re-echo our stand as a movement. We are a movement. We are not for age of consent. But again, when issues of that happened, we step in. We have never seen any organization that claims to be working on age of consent ever present when girls have situations due to FGM. For instance, there were 2 deaths in Cambia. To this day, we have never seen any other organization nor any government person following the situation in Cambia. We had to follow up to make sure the magistrate court sits on the case. There were journalists going. Some were going to see the report on the negative side. But there was a time when the witnesses came forward and they gave their witness. So everybody in that court at that time knew that there was enough evidence against the perpetrators. And so the magistrate, in a sense, committed the case to the High Court. We are still waiting. And the 2 girls, one was 13, the other one was 17. It was very much clear that they died of excessive bleeding. In Bond, there was a 21-year-old woman. When people talk about age of consent, she consented. She paid for herself to be initiated because of the mocking she faced in community. She paid. During the process, she lost her life. She died. So you begin to wonder, why are you pushing an age of consent when you also know that women can die because of the same consequence, bleeding? So that is why our focus has always been on eliminate, remove the courts from this culture.
So
Let
you are
us
not
make it
against
safe.
the Bondo itself?
No. We have shown the world that we can uphold Bondo. And as I say, people they use our pictures, they use our videos. I have seen an international organization using our photos on their website without funding us. Without funding us.
Okay. So thank you very much, Madam Anita Kuma and Rugiatu Nene Ture. We hope that these strides of yours yield a fruitful outcome at the end of the day, because you've been on this thing for a very long time, and we hope something good comes out of it. Also, Usu, in just 30 seconds, what will be your party shot out there?
Right, thank you very much. I think there is still a gloom in this conversation. I have had almost all of these women speak, making their positions on this FGM thing. But one thing that is clear is the fact that their positions are tied to one another. Now, what do we want to hold the First Lady accountable for? Because what it seems to be now in social platform or wherever you go is that people are trying to hold the First Lady accountable of something that is not clear. Are we saying that the First Lady's presence in Kenya is in fact an approval of the free genital mutilation of the forceful FGM we're talking about? Or are we saying that the First Lady should not in any way stand in solidarity with the culture of our country, which is Bondo, when she has already made her position clear that she is a circumcised woman with no complication from being circumcised, and therefore she is not and cannot go against any adult woman who willingly wants to be circumcised? Okay. But we get people say the First Lady is supporting the forceful side of FGM. Okay. What actually do these FGM, anti-FGM people want us to respond to?
So
because there's still a brewing conversation.
Thank you very much, Usu Dadida Jalo. He is the spokesperson for the First Lady, Madam Fatima Bio. We hope all of these controversies come to rest. Well, we go to another segment in the Good Morning Salon program, which is the review of the headline of our local tabloid. We start the ball rolling with the Standard Times newspaper that opens with a banner headline that says, "Victory is not won on election day. Dr. Mara's media rights. A year of growth and impact. EcoBank Salon 2025 financial results. Seizure, not silence. How Freetown Port is disrupting illegal drug networks." This story is plus one you find in the Standard Times newspaper.
Independent Observer's banner headline states 2028 leadership will be full of youth and women, directly quoting Dr. Ibrahim Bambua. Yankuba Askia-Bio, the technocrats turning Freetown Port into West Africa's gateway. Well, these stories and many more you can find on the Independent Observer newspaper.
Well, the Heritage newspaper says Sylvester Yankuba defends First Lady on FGM. SLPP constituency secretaries mobilize support for Musa Tawali. This story is plus one you find in the Heritage newspaper.
Gleaner newspaper's banner headline states Chief Minister calls on diaspora to spare the national change. NASID seeks a Egyptian partnership to extend social security to informal workers. These stories and more you can find on the Gleaner newspaper.
And the last one I have here is the African 24 newspaper that says rice and pepper prices rise up. At the APC event, Nene Toure urges politicians to end FGM. This story is plus more you find in the Africa 24 newspaper.
My final pick is the New Vision newspaper and its banner headline states government signs MOU with SO Afri Lodge for the construction of social housing programs for civil servants in Sierra Leone. Second batch of 266 Sierra Leonean Hajj pilgrims arrived in Freetown after successful 2026 Hajj. Well, these stories and more you can find on my New Vision newspaper. Well, viewers who must quickly know that these headlines read out does not reflect the views of the SLBC, but we are merely reviewing them. Well, on that note, that's how we draw the curtains of Good Morning Sierra Leone that came to you from the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation. Many thanks to our producer, Daphne Zainab, and also to our guest for gracing the program this morning. I have been Esther Sako.
And I have been Emmanuel Samoa. We'll take a quote, it's from Tim Berners-Lee, and it says, "We need diversity of thought in the world to face the new challenges." Stay glued to the SLBC. Goodbye.
As a mother of the house, whenever I want to prepare palm soup, there's no need pounding palm fruit. All I need is Nkulenu's Ghana's original palm soup base. My soup is done, and its preparation, it is not difficult at all. Nkulenu palm soup base, it's easily done with no difficulties. Just take few ladles and your soup is done. And its flavor, it's amazing. This is Nkulenu's Ghana's original palm soup base. And this is Nkulenu's Ghana's original spiced palm soup base. Iron fruit and turkey berries are naturally added.
Also available Brown Gold natural cocoa powder, Sunny Gold brown sugar, neat fufu flour, shito, pisa and moringa. All available at Nyami Ado Enterprise, 1 Lower Waterloo Street, Freetown.
Nkulenu palm soup base.
Ghanaian original taste.